Panama City.
Okay.
Yep, and we captured this footage over in Apalachicola, right along the Florida River. So, and every time we go out there, we have an encounter. So once we caught this, this right here, this book is about a chase scene. So these are two that we caught on our camera, on trail camera, which was caught at like 65 yards away from our camera, which these things are not supposed to trigger like that. So they're kind of far, but you can see them, and there's two. So one's really fast, he goes after and catches one of these twin babies. There's a mommy and two, she's got a set of twin deer babies. And this one catches the little baby. There's 6 deer in the picture that are being chased.
Right.
And then they catch one, and the huge one that we caught on these pictures here, he slows up and he transitions from all fours up to walking upright bipedally and goes right over to his buddy where he just captured dinner, you know?
Oh, wow. So there was two of them then.
There was 2 of them. And the guy slowed, like the second one, he slowed down so much that he splayed his hand at our camera and we could see every finger.
I bet they stay in Tate's Hell. You ever go in there?
Yes, and it's terrifying. Have you been in there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh gosh, it's scary every time. It's right, it butts up. Where we recorded this, it butts right up to Tate's Hell.
You might want to try where I live at in Blackwater State Forest over there.
Yeah, they're everywhere, bub. I've seen one in my backyard.
I live literally in Blackwater State Forest. I've never seen anything, but there are plenty of footprints that are not animals, and
they're there.
and plenty of noises.
When you're out there in the woods and you feel like you're being watched, you are.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes
Every time we go in the woods, we know we're being watched out here at these big woods in Apalachicola. You can just feel that. It's just eerie out there. It's scary.
You get that sixth sense of something, you're not alone type deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we just, we pack heavy. We go out there with all kinds of artillery.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we set a trail camera, and then they'll come and they'll sense it. So they'll come around it and they'll mark it. They'll break a branch out of a tree and they'll mark it.
Okay.
And there's pictures of that in these books.
So if I'm ever walking around, I see a random stick somewhere, it's probably.
Yep. And it could be angled one way. We think they're directional markers, like if they're trying to travel, they use those to help them travel through the woods.
Yeah.
Especially now because Michael came through, the woods is just not itself.
Yeah.
It's all different. But yeah, they're tracking us just as much as we're tracking them.
Yeah.
And they know when we're out there every time. We took the Biscardis out there, the Godfather of Bigfoot. I don't know if you've ever heard of those guys. But we took them out there. They wanted us to sign over our footage, but we wouldn't because they were going to strip our rights. Well, we want to spread the word like fire to everyone to protect themselves and their kids, and just try to prevent people from going missing, because so many people go missing due to these things. We think that these things are at fault.
Brian Laundrie, the dude that went missing down South Florida, hey.
And his little girlfriend, I think they
could have been. You never know.
I mean, if it wasn't him, they found her remains.
Well, they found him in a park with 9 other bodies, so.
Really?
Yeah, and they found 9 other bodies out there.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, or there's a family of Sasquatch.
Yeah.
Because they're never alone. These things are never alone.
So if you see one, there's more around, basically.
That's just from our experience. Every camera we've.
What's the craziest thing you've had happen?
To me?
Or you, your husband,
that
you know of personally.
So probably the craziest thing to me was when one tracked through my backyard.
Oh, really?
We have a really narrow strip of trees, and I was sitting outside. I used to smoke cigarettes, so I was having a cigarette, and I was looking over towards my neighbors, and their lights are set up like a stadium. So this thing, I heard something in the woods. I heard a stick break. So I looked up, and this thing blocked out the lights. It was 7 foot tall, a solid 7 foot. Like down here, they're a lot shorter than up north. But he was solid 7 foot, blacked out the lights. I saw his head, I saw his shoulders, I saw his arms. They were long. I was like, that's exactly what I think it is. So I ran inside, and I was like, where's the judge? Because we need it. Like, why isn't it loaded? Like,
yeah, seriously.
So my dog went after him, and he came running back with his tail tucked between his legs.
And
my cat was scared. She came to me, and I just went in my house. I was like, I don't know what he saw. I was hyperventilating. I was the most scared I've ever been in my whole life.
Right. Understandable.
So that freaked me out. The other thing that freaked me out really bad, because I was tied between the 2 stories here, was when after we caught this evidence, I went out there with my husband because he wasn't going alone. So I went out there with them, and I had a 30-06, And I just got his back, you know, while he's checking his camera, because
Right.
that's when he's vulnerable to these things. That's when they throw things at him. That's when they roar at him.
Because he's not paying attention.
Because he's not paying attention.
Yeah.
He's after that camera, you know. So when I was out there with him, he crouched down to check that camera, and I heard one off in the distance break a branch, slam it into the creek, and cause a big sploosh. And then I hear him coming towards us. He had to have been within 150-yard range because he was close.
Right.
I could hear his bipedal footfalls and everything. He just sounded like a horse coming through the woods.
A sound you didn't want to hear right then, basically.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And he said, well, let's go after it. Let's go towards it. We got all these guns. I'm like, we're out of here.
Yeah,
we're out of here.
seriously.
They're faster than a deer. We're out of here.
Wow.
So
Now what are the sticks right here?
these are, we believe they're their weapons.
Oh, okay.
So they are so strong, which you can see in some of these pictures. You can see their glutes, their triceps, everything.
Right.
Their shoulder muscle. It's just nuts how stout these things are.
They're just basically a walking muscle.
Yes, pretty much. They are all muscle. They're a dense creature. Like if you know about gorillas, a gorilla cannot swim. A gorilla, if it gets into the water, no matter how hard it tries to tread that water, that sucker will sink because of his muscle mass. So these guys are just as stout. But this one in particular, actually, it was stuck into the ground and propped up against a tree. So then we discovered probably like, I don't know, it was like 50 yards, 55 yards away from this was a broken down tree top that looked pretty fresh. So it was all mashed down under there, and I crawled in it. We called it like a tree den structure kind of thing.
Right.
And we think that these things stay in there and they wait to ambush their prey when they come by. But we had this stick in my hand, and I went in that tree den, and I found the branch that this thing came out of.
Yeah.
So they flat out grab this with their, it's all right.
I'll get it.
They grab this and peel it out of branches. So then they use, you know, these are very sharp.
Yeah.
And with enough force behind it, which we know they're strong,
Yeah, they can kill
they
something.
can kill something.
Very easily.
So
yeah.
we think that they, you know, they go through and they'll penetrate its spine and they'll just do what it takes.
So have you ever found a place where they live, or you think
Yes.
they live in it?
Yes, we've walked up on many tree structures. The one that I saw, he was hanging out behind my uncle's camper. He had a mash down, like where he was sleeping. And then did I tell you I measured his feet and they were 14 inches long? I measured his footprints, and then my neighbor kids came over and they're like, Juanita, we saw footprints in the back, like, because out of the back of our property is a sand pit.
Right.
Well, the kids found the footprints. So that's the scariest that I've ever, I mean, that's the scariest I've ever been.
Oh, I can imagine so.
But yeah.
Imagine so.
Best video I got is of a chase scene where these deer are running through the woods, and then one of the deer gets tracked down and tackled, and then another predator's coming in on all fours. But it's like, it looks like a bear or a gorilla while it's running through the woods all fast on all fours. But after the deer gets tackled, you know, something tells it that it can slow up a little bit, and it's like focuses in on going straight to where they went down. So he springs upright and walks bipedally and cuts an angle back to where it took the deer down into the bottom. And it's pretty crazy. You see it has hands with thumbs when it gets up, but it also has like a short muzzle, kind of like a bear. And in one of the frames, you can see its ears are stood up, but then in other frames, when you see the back of its head, it's like they're laid back down. It's just, I don't know, it's crazy.
So they have longer pointed type ears then?
Yeah, I believe that they stand up their ears, kind of like a German Shepherd, or you know, or
Okay.
their ears will lay down,
Right.
or be up, like alert more. But they, I don't know, resemble, I would say, a bear and a gorilla combined. And some people say it looks kind of like a dog man, or it would be like a werewolf in a sense, but I don't know. I call them a beware-rilla because I want people to be aware and beware that there's something out there that's a bigger predator that could take you out, and I believe has taken a lot of people out. There's a lot of missing people out there.
Well,
if you look into like the Missing 411, The Hunted, there's a movie come out in the spring last year, and there's a case where a guy is taken, or he disappears bow hunting, and they start a search. And the fourth day of the search, they find his boots in the area they already searched 3 times, and then blizzard comes, and then 11 months later they find his pack and his bow and stuff over the mountain from where they had found his boots. and it's like 7 miles, like over the mountain, and it's Rocky Mountain. Nobody could travel over the mountain without boots, let alone in the winter.
What do you think they eat? Deer and other wildlife besides
pigs, raccoons. I could show you. There's a picture in this book here, like of a raccoon that's been skinned, like it's got its hide pulled back to the knees and the tail. And I think they take whatever they can grab a hold of, but they're meticulous of what they do. If you can see this picture here, this was near one of their tree den structures. The front shoulders are missing, and the hide's turned inside out back to its knees and to its tail there. And I found several raccoons like that, and I found deer out there that had the hide pulled off of it, and then the bones are spread apart. But like I was saying about the one guy that they went missing, and 11 months later they found his gear, and then it was another 11 months later, 5 miles farther to the north, they were horseback riding, and somebody noticed something white under a broken down tree. Go over there and they found partial skull and leg bone, and it turns out to be the guy that went missing 11 miles south of there 2 years prior.
Oh wow.
So something carried him over the mountain and through the woods, like, you know, and he was like a strong elk hunter, but the common denominator in like all the missing people cases is when they get separated and they're on their own.
Right.
And that's when they get preyed upon.
Makes sense. They're vulnerable by themselves on an area where they don't know where they're at. So it makes sense.
That's it.
Now, how long have you been doing this?
Now, I would say I've been hunting my whole life. I seen one of these creatures in 2009. So it's been 11 years since I first saw one. But I captured trail camera footage in like 2014, 2015. So then I documented the story and got it all wrote down so I had it, and then got it published like 2016. And then I had all these questions and stuff, and then I studied more and researched more. I had to find out what I really thought they was. That's the number one question: what do you really think they are? So I developed my theory of what I truly believe, and then wrote like a guidebook and got it published in 2018. So I mean, I first saw one in 2009. It started the whole snowball of experiences, and then when I actually obtained footage, I'm like, I got to show this to people.
Right.
And then, so I don't really pursue it day and night. I just go day by day. Like, I don't go out in the woods and mess with stuff like this at night.
What's the chance of trying to collect some DNA?
I might have some personally. Like, I found a hair that stuck in a tree branch that was broken out of a pushed down tree, and it was like chewed on. There's a bite mark, and then there's a hair stuck in between the bark and the inner part of the tree, like it's stuck in there like a check mark, and it's a real coarse, like dark gray hair.
What's the chance of sending some of that in for a DNA sample, see what it is?
I would do it. I, you know, called some labs when I first got it, in the first year I had it and stuff, and they wanted like $1,000 for me to send it off and get it tested.
I think it's cheaper now.
It may be. That was back in like 2015. I didn't feel comfortable mailing it off and paying $1,000. I felt like it could just go missing and then they could tell me whatever. I wanted to be a part of the testing, take it somewhere,
makes sense,
and be like at the lab or something to kind of see the results firsthand.
Yeah, because if you're not, you don't know what they're telling you the truth or what.
Yeah,
so yeah, it makes sense.
And then they just let it go. And then so I felt like it was too valuable that I'd rather just keep it.
Right.
It's part of the story. So I think you could get DNA. I really feel like somebody could, you know, bring one of these things in one day.
Really?
I mean, I feel like there's population is pretty considerable.
I was going to say, do you think they're, going up in population wise, staying about the same, or?
That's a tough question. I think the population is higher than a lot of people think. I don't know if it's actually increasing. I would say that their territory might be decreasing over time, but we have tons of national forests and land set aside. There's plenty of land and wilderness out there, but over time with encroachment and stuff and then forests going away, it's going to seem like there's more.
Right.
There might be the same amount in less of an area.
Yeah, because there's less land, less.
How long have you lived? Is it Apalachicola or Panama City?
I lived around Panama City for 18 years. I mean, I live just northwest of there now, kind of close to Freeport. I work in Destin, so that I've lived down here in this area about 20 years. But I would travel to Apalachicola, the management area over there, to the river, and hunt a lot for like the last 15 years.
How do you make a living? because you can't do that much.
Right. No, I serve tables and bartend on the beach. It's like, it's pretty good living. In Destin, let me tell you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I work at the surf hut. We're short-staffed.
Surf hut?
Yeah, the surf hut in Destin. And I had to take off work today to come up here. They want me to work like, 50, 60 hours a week. It's crazy.
I work at taking care of our babies.
She did work. My wife and I worked together for 6 years.
Oh, we were in banquets.
We worked at Runaway Island on Panama City Beach. It's a beach restaurant.
Right.
We did weddings and receptions and stuff there and all. With COVID, we stepped out of the restaurant. She got pregnant and we didn't work for 9-10 months. And I just started back there at the end of the summer in Destin. We went there. They needed help. You won't believe it.
I got a friend that lives there. He's in the logging business. I'll have to tell him to get in touch with you. Maybe he knows some places you could look.
Yeah, no, I would. I'm interested in, finding out, other people's stories, and these things are all over. You ain't gonna fool me. I've seen it in Illinois. I've seen tracks in Pennsylvania. I know they're pretty much in every state except I don't know about Hawaii. I mean, that's out there pretty far, I would say. But these things are everywhere. She's seen it in Illinois. She's seen it here in Florida and in Southport. And that's far from the Apalachicola in a sense. It was in the backyard, but the backyard goes back to wilderness behind like the Panama City Airport.
Yeah.
The beach airport there, but these things hide anywhere they can, anywhere there's a lot of woods. Like even around here, there's so much country and wilderness and woods.
Oh yeah, I live in Blackwater State Forest, like I was telling your
Gotta
wife.
be there.
Yeah, like we'll be laying on the bed and watching TV. All of a sudden, his hair will stand up and he'll start growling. He'll run downstairs and he'll be staring at the door.
That's the whole
And
thing.
I'll go downstairs thinking, maybe somebody's out there, and you won't be nobody out there. So
I talk about my dog telling me that the Bigfoot's there. Like in this book, there's more encounters in this one here, but like my dog one time, she was a coonhound. Now she loved tracking deer, and she'd see deer, she'd go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were in Illinois, and I was going to walk her, and she got down like she was in killer mode, was pulling on the leash, and I was like just trying to take her for a walk around the yard. And I thought, oh no, she thinks there's a deer in the woods. I don't want to take her out there and run the deer off. It's there in the shotgun season, and I was like, I heard this loud tree crack. I thought the deer must be chasing, bucks must be rutting in there and cracked a stick. No, there was a Bigfoot out there, and she knew it. I took her back in the garage, but I heard that tree break. I went out there the next morning before we go to the shop. Our family's got a deer processing place there in Illinois, Palestine, but there was a fresh tree break. This was a calm night, and the tree was broken out towards the yard. And one like turned up, and it was all real orange from where it just broke. And this thing brought 2 other branches and stuck them in the ground and crossed them over there. Had it all matted down, and had stayed right there. And the dog sensed it. And it broke the tree, I think, to try and like warn me to stay back.
Right.
I didn't even know. I thought it was a deer.
Right.
Till the next day. Well, I left my coonhound in because she'll run off. I assume she's always chasing deer, but she chases everything.
Coonhounds, they follow their nose.
So we go back out there, and we brought the little bulldog, English bulldog, with us because I found the sign. And right before we go in the shop, so I took my wife and my sister. I'm like, look at this. This thing was right here last night, broke the tree. That's what my dog was barking at, freaking out about.
Yeah.
And then the bulldog goes right into there where the thing was at and starts grabbing. And it was all cool walking out there like nothing happened. And we get to where the thing had been. She must have smelled it. And she grabs a hold of the tree that were stuck in there like that and started shaking it and pulling on it. Like it smelled it clear as day. And like you said, where we live now, we got like a part black lab and a part red cur dog.
Right.
And we live right on the edge of Black Creek. It's near the Choctaw River. And there's this sliver of wood. And they put in an AT&T tower on the other side of the creek. And they're clearing some wood. So like everything is going through the woods on our side of the creek. And it's thick.
Right.
And dogs, they come out and they do the same thing. They'll growl, run into the woods. And we hear stuff going off. It sounds like big crushing steps. I'm like, I don't want to tell her. I mean, that sounds like something walking upright going through the woods.
So you think your dogs identify the smell now when they see one, or hear one, or smell one?
You know,
I
think they definitely know. Yeah, they know what it is. They know it's not a deer or it's a pig. I think the dogs are definitely that smart. And then these dogs out at the farm, they laid out by the woods. They didn't come in and they go under the porch and stuff, usually lay on the deck. Now, after this the other night, they laid out by the woods on the edge, both looking in the woods. So then I went and got my mag light and my headlight. I'm like, well, I'm going to go out here and just check it out myself. I don't hear nothing now. It's been like 5-10 minutes, and they're laying by the woods. So I went out there and petted it. I'm like, y'all are good dogs. You're watching the property. I'm like, that's good. And I figured that then they would come back to the house with me. No. I started walking back to the house. They walked a little bit, and they both stopped and turned back around. And then they looked at me. I went back to the house. I'm like, y'all just going to stay out there and watch the place? And they both sat there. Then they laid back down there again, and where they were 10 yards away from the woods, right on the edge.
Right.
Just laying there watching them.
Well, let me ask you this: what are some signs folks might want to look out for if they're in the woods, and or if you think one might be around it? What would I notice if look on the ground for and everything to see?
Stuff like this right here. They mark their ways with branches stuck in the ground. I guess you would. Like they put branches in the ground like this and like this at an angle. I find hundreds of these. They mark their travel ways like that, and like per se, that led to that footprint, I guess. And that was that footprint you seen earlier. But like, let me go through here a little bit farther. They like to break sweet gum branches a lot. A lot of times they'll stick one straight in the ground by the base of a big tree, and it's like they hide by the big tree, and then they got more cover. They took these sweet gum branches out into a goldenrod field here where there was planted pines. They matted all the goldenrods down, and they had a couple branches from the woods they carried out there with them.
Yeah.
And then like this is like a tree den structure here where they had 2 sweet gum branches, and they had a place where they crawl in there, and this is what it looked like from the backside.
Well, let me ask you this, because where I live at, we have a bunch of small pines and everything, and I've noticed that they've been bent together and everything.
Yeah, stuff like that. You'll notice where they break the trees over, and then they'll bring other tree branches in, and they'll add to it. This was like a spear. It was laid across a broken tree, like it was sitting up there, and it had like a spear balanced up there out of a broken tree branch. That's the type of crazy stuff you want to look for. These are regular markers. Like these are like trail markers or like creek crossing markers here.
Okay.
This is a tree den structure I found in Pennsylvania out in Jumbo Woods. It's got like 2 walls. It's at the base of a hill with a little roof, but that's like about thigh high. I could have crawled in there, but I don't know what it would be for.
Right.
Godfather, the Godfather is searching for Bigfoot. He calls himself Tom Biscardi. He said that, and that's a Bigfoot lair. I'm like, for what? And he said, but they might put their young ones in there to make them stay while they go hunt or something.
Right.
I don't know. That's just theory.
Yeah.
But look for sticks stuck in the ground at like a 45-degree angle or 50-degree angle, sort of, in the broken trees. Like if they're broken and then like kind of turned up, or to where they stay horizontal at about a 6-foot level. If you're looking down through the woods and you see these like horizontal trees, like it's probably some sort of travel marker. And you go over by there and you might see the other branches stuck in the ground. A lot of times where I find the branches stuck in the ground, I don't know, they send each other off of them, like because they had their hands on it or whatever.
Right.
But sometimes then I'll find where they got 4 or 5 in the same spot. It seems like they put them in the ground and they kind of point the way they were traveling. Because then there'll be like 4 or 5, or they'll be in a line and they'll all be like stuck in the ground the same way. You might find them like 50 yards apart from each other and stuff.
There's a way to travel, right? I got you.